Don't forget to check out the Sunset Lounge. Check out patreon.com/Sunset Lounge DFW. There you will find, among other things, Beer 30 Sports O'Clock. This is your favorite go-to for discussing craft beer and breweries, all things sports, but mainly college football. Ziggy is the host. He gives you real barbershop sports talk and gives you the tips you need before you lay down those bets. So check out Beer 30 Sports O'Clock and all the great stuff we have for you here at the Sunset Lounge.
Nobody would have thought that I would be the one. Rhyner, sports talk. Baseball, 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 baseball.
Oh, with the big mic. Oh, okay. All right, yeah. Okay, now I get it.
We got a lightning strike, boys. What happened over there, Grego? We had a little lightning strike right outside the window.
Texas Rangers win the World Series.
All right. Here's a tip for all these Americano League teams.
Wait, you said tip.
Yeah, tip.
Okay.
With a P.
Keep jamming.
The ticket, colon, nothing but a big Gen X jerk-off session.
This is a cool night or what?
Although somebody would hear that and go, bullshit.
I'm back, bitches.
What, did I say something?
You're all good.
Okay.
Listen to Shine Down.
I don't want to.
How dare you?
Oh, is that a band?
They're a band. I feel like you've heard them. Let's see.
Would I know them, Shoopy?
Probably.
I made it through the day. I watched the world outside. By the way,
Shinedown is like Ashley's family's band. Yeah.
I just saw Haley's comments your way.
Our guest likes them.
I do know Shinedown.
I don't think so.
I do know Shinedown.
Why? Look, I'm not cool. I know it.
I feel like here.
No. I don't recall hearing this. If it did, it didn't stick.
Well,
Have they got anything else?
yeah, let's see. Sound of Madness, maybe? Yeah. Rock.
Boy, this is cool. 3 heads bobbing, and I'm going, the hell, man?
You're an outcast, always under attack, always.
No, don't know that either. Don't know
Let's
that.
sneak it onto his iPad for his long walks.
All right. So
Anyway,
the thing hasn't even started yet, and we've determined that I don't know Shinedown.
This is like the 5th time we've had this conversation, too. He doesn't remember them ever.
I've totally forgotten the other 4.
I know.
Well, anyway, hi, everybody. This is another episode of Your Dark Companion. I believe the number is 146
hell yeah.
today. God, that's a lot.
We're still here.
Man. And this is the 1st of September, which means that we are through with the worst month of the year.
We made it.
We survived it once again.
We cleared it.
We cleared August. Now, let's just get through this. This will be the final month of mandatory summertime gear. Then we're home free.
We're flying. We're wearing hoodies.
We are. So it's all good here inside the nurturing biosphere of the mothership. Hopefully it's good wherever you are. And also, hopefully, you like the Cowboys. Because today, if you like the Cowboys, you are going to like this. Because joining us today is the guy on the beat for the Dallas Morning News these days. He is Joe Hoyt.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this.
Of course, thanks. Did anything happen recently with the Cowboys?
Well, that's what we got you in here for.
Oh yeah, sorry.
If you need to run out there and make a couple phone calls,
Yeah, let me do a Google search. No, it has been a crazy time for the Cowboys. But it's funny I say that, and then you watch the documentary, you kind of think about everything with the Cowboys amidst the Jerry Jones era, and it's always a crazy time covering this team.
Yeah, it's really not much more than par for the course.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I will say this was shocking though this past week.
What happened?
Well, we're definitely going to get into that, but I have a couple questions here about you.
Let's do it.
Because I don't know you very well, but it seems like I remember, I could be dead wrong here, but it seems like I remember you having a previous swim through the Dallas Morning News before this. Is that so?
Yeah, technically this is my third time, so
really?
It's the return part 3. I was an intern at the Dallas Morning News in 2016. Then I went to Iowa, then I went to Portland, then I came back to Dallas in 2018, covered high school sports for the Dallas Morning News. Whoop, whoop. Then I went on to cover college sports. The Texas Rangers had a stint covering the Stars in the playoff run too. And then, I went to go cover the Cowboys. That was always a dream of mine to cover the NFL. Went to a startup to do it. Took a chance there, went to another place to do it, another startup, and the goal was always to come back to the Dallas Morning News. And to be honest, I'm blessed to be able to do that 2 years later.
And it worked out for you.
It worked out. Yeah, it was definitely. I'm a big believer in terms of career stuff that you got to know when to make risks and when not. And I took a chance, went to a startup, and it's funny, the startup doesn't even exist anymore. It was called Lone Star Live. Doesn't even exist, but it was what was able to kind of get me on the beat and prove that I could cover the Cowboys. And when I was at the DMN the first time or the second time, one thing they told me was, hey, I asked them, how do I cover the Cowboys? How do I get to that point? And they said, to be honest with you can't just rise here. We're going to need to see it somewhere else. This is a big time beat. And so I took that to heart, took a risk, and kind of worked out.
For a good chunk of my time paying attention to who's on the Cowboy beat and how it's covered and everything, it's a 2-man gig. Is it a 2-man gig for you or
2-man gig for us right now? It's been a 3-person gig sometimes.
Yeah.
With so much going on, and 3 people definitely helps. But with 2 people right now, it's me and Calvin Watkins, and then I'm replacing David Moore, who was just fantastic. And that's some big shoes to fill for sure. And
that is some big shoes to fill.
He's fantastic.
Yep, he is fantastic. He's a long-time good pal of mine, and I hope to have him in here someday.
We'll make that happen.
By the way, we've already had Calvin Watkins in that chair.
Oh,
his butt has been in that
I was
seat.
saying I could feel a presence here. As you know too, if you want to get David in, just bring a Pinot Noir. That brings David. That is the moth to flame for David. A Willamette Valley Pinot. I'm sure he'll love that.
Well, it's very unfortunate for you that you picked up the Cowboy beat when nothing was going on.
Yeah, nothing. No. Yeah. A lot has happened. Yeah, the Micah Parsons trade, we can talk about it. So much led up to it. So much when you start looking kind of in hindsight, so many things happened that would kind of predict this outcome. But the thing was, and you know the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, there was never belief pretty much from anyone else that he would ever make this kind of move, that he would not pay the guy in the end. He's done it so many times, and the fact that it happened was shocking. Franchise altering potentially.
Yeah.
It was an insane couple hours there for sure once it actually happened.
My take on it when it first started coming down and everything was, okay, this is just nothing more than a little training camp kerfluffle, and when training camp is over with and the season rolls around, it'll get done, because that's the way it always had happened before. I do see now that there are a couple of signposts along the way that I probably should have paid a little bit more attention to.
Yeah, no doubt.
Most of those having to do with what Micah Parsons is about, and the kind of guy he is, because he seemed really, really dug in from the start, but because of the way it had always worked out before, I didn't pay that much attention to that.
Yeah, no doubt, because, and I said this, and it's funny, being a new guy on the beat, sometimes you have to guard against a little bit of your naivete a little bit, and it's like, hey, I think this is the way things are going, but maybe this is just me being kind of new and learning things a little bit. And I kind of felt from the very beginning that this was different, that this was a little bit weird, because I had seen what happened with Dak Prescott last year. You saw it with CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, you paid attention to Zeke Elliott, Zach Martin, all these guys, yeah, they had their things, but that's just Jerry being Jerry. You got to do business with him like that. That's one thing DeMarcus Lawrence, who is now in Seattle, he talked about that. If you're going to do business with the Cowboys, you're going to have to do it Jerry's way, but ultimately it'll work out. But there was just, from the very beginning, things felt a little bit different with Micah. And obviously Micah, he's so conscientious of his brand. He's so conscientious of public outward-facing things that, you started to wonder, were some of these little cracks just kind of showmanship in terms of a negotiation? But you come to find out that I think the turning point, the big pillar, was the fact that the two negotiated. Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones directly. Jerry Jones thought they had a deal. Micah Parsons, then turned to his agent and said, hey, I've talked to Jerry Jones. Now I want you to do it. And by the way, where we kind of agreed, that's going to be the starting point for the new negotiations with David Mulugeta. And, it didn't work out in terms of Jerry Jones being too thrilled about that idea.
Why? I mean, that's the way this is done in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you're going to negotiate a contract with a player, you're going to go through his agent. Yeah. The agent's going to be there. He's going to be present. He's going to be involved. He's going to be giving feedback to the player. Why was Jerry so reluctant to do this the way it's normally done?
I think it's because Jerry, and he's kind of talked about this, he believed that when he entered a negotiation with Micah Parsons, those were the two principles involved, is what the words he keeps using. And he believed that when he talked with Micah Parsons and they negotiated, he gave in a little bit. He moved off his mark, is the wording he keeps using. And I even asked him, do you plan to continue this type of negotiation tactic in the future? And he said, yes, completely. Because one thing I love to do is I want a player to see the look in my eye when I say, you know what, you got me there. I'll give you that money, or I'm going to be the one that kind of changes your life with these millions of dollars. And I think Jerry Jones thought that he had that moment with Micah Parsons, and it didn't work out. It didn't happen. And so, but as you kind of pointed to, this is not how things go. Lawyers, agents, these things are the guys that make these deals happen. This is what puts, words to writing. He thinks that didn't have to happen. And honestly, I think when you look at it from Micah Parsons' perspective, there was a lot of belief that David Mulugeta, a guy that Micah Parsons cares about, was disrespected throughout this process. Yeah. Jerry Jones wouldn't say his name. Jerry Jones wouldn't call him. This is the most powerful agent, according to Forbes, in the NFL.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, this is a name that, if you pay any kind of attention to this stuff, you see that name all the time.
100%. Yeah, I mean, and David Mulugeta has earned that. I mean, he's also kind of had a clear path, though, in terms of with his star players, how they kind of do business, too. And that is to be dug in. That is to say, hey, we're willing to miss games. We're, back tightness is a thing that, that might be a thing in terms of negotiations. And I do believe that first negotiation between Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons was the thing that kind of started the rift. I believe the straw that broke the camel's back, though, came in the last couple of weeks when it was pretty evident that Micah Parsons was not going to play without a new deal. Micah Parsons had the back tightness. He'd been saying that for a long time, but it never healed. Micah Parsons got a second opinion, external opinion on his back. And if you kind of look at how the CBA is formulated, that was definitely them trying to guard against a potential injury grievance, that could come out if this thing continued on. And I think if you looked at the path, if they didn't trade Micah Parsons and they didn't pay him because they clearly didn't want to, David Mulugeta and Micah Parsons went back to Jerry Jones last minute and said, hey, let's do this. Let's have a negotiation. And Jerry Jones confirmed this. He said, play on your fifth-year option for $21 million or get out. And ultimately, I think if this thing didn't get resolution, we were on course for a very, very, very set of messy circumstances.
Wow. Do you think this is the best trade the Cowboys could have made for him?
Personally, I know that they had interest from other places, and if you kind of look at their thought process, they wanted to get a defensive tackle to stop the run, and they wanted to get draft capital, right? And they looked at all the teams and said, which teams could actually afford Micah Parsons and who could bring us a defensive tackle that can stop the run. They believe they got the best deal because they got, Kenny Clark, who's a guy that can step in right away and definitely be kind of what they've been missing in the middle in terms of a nose tackle. I don't think this is the best deal they could have done, no. I think that if you open up the trade lines, and it's funny because I was talking to someone with the Cowboys who kind of pushed back on this narrative, and then I pushed back too and said, if you, after that March and April meeting between Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones, if you say, you know what, I don't like the fact that Micah Parsons then said, hey, we're going to have to start over with my agent, I think we should trade him. And that's one thing Jerry Jones has said, like they've been considering a trade for a while. Well, if you trade him before the draft, you might get 3 first-round picks. You might get a first-round pick in 2025, 2026, and 2027. Maybe it's a first-round pick in 2025, 2026, and a second-rounder in 2027. I think you get more draft capital to, as Jerry Jones likes to say, cut and shoot and make some moves if you do it before the draft that can help you immediately. While I do think Kenny Clark is a guy that can help them immediately, they're putting a lot of pressure on him to be the solution, the fix in the defensive line, the kind of antidote for, something that's been plaguing them for years, and that's their run defense. That's a lot of pressure. So I think that they probably could have got a better deal if they did this earlier, frankly. But right now, right before the season, they believe that they got someone that could fix something that really has bothered them.
Do you remember a point as all this was playing out where you thought to yourself, uh-oh, this is really going to get bad, and the end is probably not going to be a real good one for anybody?
Yeah, I think at the end of training camp, I was resolute in this idea that things had gotten weird. Like, that naivete I was talking about earlier, being on the beat. I kind of pushed that aside. I said, things are getting weird. This is not going well. And I do think as Micah Parsons kind of kept citing the back injury, once he made the trade request, obviously things were set course. But I think once the back injury stuff came to a head, and you start talking to people, and not only were the Cowboys or were the David Mulligetta and Micah Parsons preparing, I think, for a potential injury grievance from the Cowboys as they were preparing to miss games, I think that side was also preparing to potentially file a grievance against the Cowboys for the way they negotiated.
Yeah.
So you might have had grievances back and forth. You might have had lawyers back and forth. You might have not had resolution on what was going to happen with him for a while. And the other thing, too, was the pending grievance that the NFLPA and the Cowboys, or Micah Parsons, had already filed against the NFL and the Cowboys regarding his 5th-year option and what position he was. They were trying to argue. So he was slated as a defensive end, which is pivotal because that meant that he got paid $3 million roughly less on his 5th-year option than he would as a linebacker. But he was drafted as a linebacker. They believed he was a linebacker, and they wanted to go set a grievance. There was a pending grievance over that, too. So if they were already getting messy over $3 million in a 5th-year option that might become moot, I thought that things could get really messy from that point if they wanted to keep pursuing this.
Boy, that's a lot of stuff. That is just a world of stuff that we as fans, either don't know about or I know in my case, I only have a certain tolerance for it before I start getting down on all fours and barking like a dog, just doing all kinds of weird stuff. But man, that's just an amazing story and an amazing set of circumstances to watch play out for you.
100%, and a very dramatic one. And it's funny, I have a story coming out soon, looking at how much value there is in that, actually, though, in terms of the drawn-out negotiations, in terms of what they've done with Dak Prescott and the will they or won't they. Remember, they signed him literally the morning of the season opener last year in Cleveland. The CeeDee Lamb drawn-out negotiations. There is value in controversy, and no one knows that better than Jerry Jones himself.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing we've learned from him being what he is around here, it's that.
100%.
And that nobody knows it, nobody plays it out like he does.
No, and no one kind of relishes that frontward-facing controversy like him, too. I mean, I just keep thinking there was a moment when we're covering the premiere of his documentary, a week before it comes out, and we're at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood, California, and we had just talked with him, and it was funny. One thing, when he walked to his local media, the first thing he says to us is, I told you if you guys stuck around me, I'd take you to the stars. And I was like, that's classic Jerry. But there's a moment when I'm like leaving this and I'm about to write a story about, a scene setting piece a little bit. And I'm walking down and I look down and I see Dolly Parton's star. And I'm just like, only covering the Cowboys would I be in Hollywood, California after a Netflix documentary premiere about something that was 30 years ago and then writing about it there and having to pull into a random restaurant to write there while it's just, anyways, it's a dramatic, controversy-filled team, but people love to hate it or love to love it.
What do you think about that documentary?
It's interesting because as someone who didn't grow up in Dallas and, all these things did happen when I was a little bit younger, I didn't really have a full sense of it.
I was too, believe it or not.
I know, it's been a while. I didn't really have a good, full sense of it. I had heard stories and obviously I knew some things, but I thought from that standpoint, it was fantastic. in terms of kind of just going over things that we kind of knew. If you have done research or paid attention, it was funny though because we watched it before it came out.
Yeah,
we got a chance to look at it before, and I thought it was good. I didn't think it. The reaction that actually people had to it, and kind of all the applause and credit it got. I was a little bit surprised by that because I was like, oh, I thought it was good. I didn't know it was going to be that good in the community. A lot of people really liked it. A lot of people, thought it was very dramatic. And, the other thing too is I had someone tell me like, man, I was surprised that it wasn't a puff piece for Jerry Jones. And, and I was like, yeah, Jerry Jones wouldn't want a puff piece. Like,
no, you could say what you want to about him.
Yeah, 100%.
But he's not going for any kind of puff piece on something like that.
No, he wanted real.
Yes,
and he doesn't mind.
He wanted real and he got real.
Yeah, he doesn't mind at all. I've had people tell me, it's funny, Mike, like, I'll do like a podcast inside the studio, the Cowboys headquarters, and I'll be saying, hey, Jerry Jones has been a bad GM, for example, right? And people will be like, how do you say that? And, not worry about your credentials getting removed. I was like, do you think Jerry Jones cares about those kind of comments? No, he welcomes it. He loves it. And,
yeah, you're talking about him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's ultimately the biggest thing when it comes to Jerry Jones. Loves, I think, to be in the conversation and loves to have kind of the cameras on him, frankly. I think he'd tell you that too.
Yeah. People have said, and I know you've heard it, you probably thought it yourself, that's what matters most to him.
Yeah, Forbes tells you that too, right? And just how valuable they are. And I think that is ultimately, something that I think has carried with him in this franchise for a long time. One other note about just kind of this Micah Parsons trade, and speaking of the documentary, one thing Jerry Jones told us at the premiere was one of the best things that ever happened to him was the Herschel Walker trade. And he was so adamant about this premiere. And I kind of remember ears pinning up a little bit. I'm like, that's kind of interesting how adamant he was. And then for him to go around, turn around and trade Micah Parsons for what he believes can be a Herschel Walker type thing. Obviously not the same haul, and he was never going to get that type of haul in today's world. But he believes that this is something that could be similar to the Herschel Walker trade. I genuinely think from the filming and from watching the documentary, he was inspired to make this Micah Parsons trade because of the Herschel Walker trade, because of what he saw his former self do in terms of being the gambler, the cut and shoot, the take risks. I think he was inspired by it.
Man, I got to tell you, one thing it did for me was put me back in that place.
Yeah.
And bring back the vibes of those times. Like, all the stuff with all the off the field stuff with the White House and all that,
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, I don't know if you know this or not, but I used to be on the radio and we got a little mileage out of that.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. That's the thing about this beat. It's always giving. There's always stuff to talk about. There's always stuff to write about. And, it's fascinating, man. It really is.
Well, sooner or later, and probably sooner rather than later, you're going to have actual football.
I know.
To write about.
I know. I got the Marriott notification, saying, hey, time to check in for your Philadelphia hotel. And I was like, oh my God, it's actually here.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It is actually here. So what have we got?
It's a great question. The official prediction I went with was 8-9. And I think ultimately my rationale was they're too good to be bad, but they're not good enough to be good, frankly. And I know that's a very rudimentary kind of way to look at it, but I think if you look at what they have in terms of Dak Prescott, when he's been healthy, they win. Whether or not you think he's a great quarterback or not, that's obviously very polarizing topic. They do win.
Do you think he's a great quarterback?
I don't think he's a tier 1 quarterback by any means. I think he's a top 12, top 10 on a good season quarterback in the NFL, which in my opinion is good enough to win.
Yeah, for me, I see him as an upper second tier quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, there's been a lot of winning done.
A ton.
Big and otherwise with upper second tier quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Not every quarterback who's won the Super Bowl has been a upper first tier guy.
Trent Dilfer might have been a 4th tier.
Yeah.
And I think about Dak being healthy, they've won, right? But I also think when he's been healthy and CeeDee Lamb's been healthy, they've been very productive. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb were probably one of the best, or maybe the best connection 2 years ago when Dak was a MVP runner-up, because they were fantastic. And I think CeeDee Lamb has taken another step too. Last year, he dealt with the contract negotiation stuff. I think that affected him a little bit last year. Obviously, Dak then getting hurt didn't help him either. Now that those two are healthy and they've had it, been able to really work together this offseason, I think that chemistry is going to go. And then I do think that the addition of George Pickens is a catalyst on the field. I think George Pickens is a top 15 to 20 wide receiver in the NFL. The fact that he was averaging 1,000 yards over in Pittsburgh when they had no quarterback play, I think is a really testament to his ability. I think those two are going to be really, really good. But the questions they have on this team, there's a lot. The running game, we don't know. The offensive line, what they're going to do at left tackle. Can Tyler Guyton actually take the next step and be a serviceable left tackle? I think that's a huge X factor for them. Whether he'll play in week 1 or not, still also an X factor. I think defensively, they've got a lot of questions, a lot of holes. I do think Kenny Clark helps in terms of, stopping the run a little bit. But now it's, okay, who's going to be your closer on the edge? Who's going to be the guy that goes out and makes sacks, that wins games? And Micah Parsons, whether you liked him or not, whether he was a diva or not, this was, by all measures, an elite pass rusher and one of the best players in the NFL. And now you've lost him. That's got to have some effect.
How is the coach playing in the room?
I think
all you can tell.
Yeah, I think, it's a fascinating storyline, and I think it's something we're going to be watching for this entire season. I like to think in terms of covering a beat and covering a season that there's themes that define it from the beginning, the middle, and the end, and you always going to have to do temperature checks a little bit with those themes. And Brian Schottenheimer is a pivotal theme for this Cowboys team, and this is a guy that used to be kind of the up-and-coming young, head coach, but in waiting. He missed his chance, and then, the iron got cold. You couldn't strike it then. And then the Cowboys were willing to do it, but I think a big reason why is because they got to know Brian Schottenheimer. He started as a defensive analyst for them. Then he was, an offensive assistant. Then he was an offensive coordinator. And it's funny, the first time I ever heard Brian Schottenheimer talk in a press conference, and this was first year on the beat, I remember just thinking, that's a head coach. Like, take all the history out of it, like just the way he talked.
Yeah.
That's a head coach. And I think that that's something that's been able to carry him to being a head coach. Now the question is, can you actually be a good head coach?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that he's in this chair. But I'll be honest, I don't know what to expect from him as a head coach.
One of the things that the main thing that I've been using to gauge him is been by the stuff that he says.
Yeah.
And you know how Cowboys coaches can be. Sometimes when they're standing there talking to everybody, and they know that Jerry's leering in the background somewhere, and that can make your train of thought go off the rails pretty quickly, and you wind up saying something that you wish you hadn't have.
Yeah.
And I've been measuring what I've heard Brian Schottenheimer say, and so far so good, man.
No doubt, yeah.
I mean, I don't hear much out of him that's really given me pause.
No.
In fact, I don't think I've heard anything that has sounded like, has made me go, man, that's kind of weird.
I think flip it on its head too a little bit. I think everything he said has almost made you believe him.
Yeah.
Like, he is the one thing with Brian Schottenheimer, very genuine guy. Like, you talk to people around the facility, you talk to people that hold, the security people at Cowboys headquarters, and they'll say, "Oh, Brian Schottenheimer asked how my day was doing and checks in with me." He will buy donuts for random people in marketing. Like, this is a guy that I think everyone loves to be around, and I think he's a genuine dude. As a reporter, even we're very cynical, and one thing that we kind of guard against in press conferences is like, okay, that what this coach is saying, that's coach speak. That's something that's not real.
Yeah.
He's just trying to kind of. Right. There's been very few times where I say Brian Schottenheimer is doing coach speak right here. Like, and usually it's because he kind of has to, frankly, to kind of cover something. About maybe the Micah stuff, you start to wonder, like, when he was saying, hey, he's going to play, it's like, is he going to play, But in terms of, like, if you ask Brian Schottenheimer any question, usually, genuine answer. Every time. If you ask him, like, why did that defensive end do that in that situation, he'll explain to you the coverage that they were running behind him, the blocking scheme that the running backs, were trying to follow in front of him. Maybe the fact that the defensive tackle, like, whispered to him and said, hey, I want you to run this instead of that. Like, he goes out of his way to be very genuine. And I think it's the reason why a lot of fans, there is actually a little more excitement than when he was hired.
Yeah. I mean, I respect that out of him, and I know guys like you do too.
100%, yeah. But in the NFL, can you win? That's the whole thing. It comes down to Brian Schottenheimer, and he'd be the first one to tell you that.
This is Joe Hoyt. He covers the Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. And we'll be back with Joe in just a second, but right now, it's time for the dreaded and feared mid-show read.
Don't be scared, Joe.
It's a highlight of every one of these we do, Joe.
I love it.
All right, let's talk about your pain and anxiety. Would you like to free yourself of your pain and anxiety? And how about those sleepless nights? Would you like to get rid of them? Would you like to do it naturally? Well, at the CBD House of Healing, they can help you out because they only carry products from their lab made to meet the highest quality and purity standards. Find your relief from the aches and pains of this world, the emotional stress and drain, and sleep again. Shop online at cbddallas.com or go over there and see them for yourself. Grab a slushie. They're at 8550 Plano Road, Suite 101. That is in the northeast quadrant of that burgeoning intersection of Plano Road and Northwest Highway here in Dallas. Begin your healing at the House of Healing. Effective now, all vape products will be sold online only at cbddallas.com. Is that it? That's all we got here?
We nailed it.
Wow.
We made it, Shoopy.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Let's get back to Joe.
All right, I have to
You got to recollect.
I have to regather myself here.
That music got me a little scared. That drop,
yeah.
and I just saw Jaws for the first time, and that kind of gave me some Jaws vibes. I was a little stressed out and anxious.
You saw it for the first time.
For the first time, yeah. It was in. They're doing the 50th anniversary, so they're putting it in theaters. And me and my wife, when we were in New York once, we saw a play called "The Shark is Broken." And it was the backstory about how the shark was broken and all the stuff that happened on scene. And I finally, I told her, like, hey, by the way, great play we just saw, but I've never seen Jaws. And she was jaw dropped, ironically. So we had to see it, and it was good. I was anxious, but it was good.
How old were you when Jaws came out?
Negative 19.
Good Lord.
Yeah, negative 19.
Man, you have no idea of the furor that film caused.
Yeah.
Did you see
my
that
mom
in
was
theater?
telling me about it.
What?
Did you see it in
I
the
saw it in
theater?
the
Okay.
theater. And everybody wanted to, everybody had to see it. You didn't just want to see it, you had to see it. It was one of those, the biggest pop culture things that we had long before that term had been adequately defined.
Well, I know that, but you also haven't seen Star Wars. So
No, I
got to make sure. Like I figured you were more likely to see Jaws, but
I'm definitely more likely to
check.
see Jaws than Star Wars.
So is Star Wars, is it like just a stance thing at this point, or are you just not into the sci-fi kind of?
Well, it started off as not being into the sci-fi thing, but now, and I hate to be this guy because it's kind of get off my lawn guy.
Yeah.
But I've been so dug in on it for so long that I might as well just write it out.
That's fair. That's what David Mulligan and Micah Parsons were doing with their stance in negotiations
right.
too. So sometimes you got to be dug in. You got to believe in it.
Now that is bringing it back to football.
See, that's what Joe does.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the coming season. Are you free to talk about the larger NFL stuff?
Oh, of course, yeah, I would love to. I'm a big football fan.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the reason why I wanted to do it and got in the business, and I love football.
It looks to me like the NFC East is getting strong again.
Oh yeah,
and when I say getting strong again, there have been a couple of years where the good teams were, there was one good team, there was another team that was pretty good, and then there were a couple of teams that weren't very good at all. And now it's looking like you got two teams that are really strong. Mm-hmm. You got another one that's on the way up. Mm-hmm. And then there's the Cowboys. Where do the Cowboys fit in on this?
I think they're third. But it's funny you bring that up because I was thinking about this kind of recently. I'm like, if you kind of look at what the Giants are doing too, and it's funny because they've also been the also ran in the NFC East now for a little while. Obviously, with Eli Manning had the Super Bowl wins, but things have kind of fallen off in the last few years there. If you look at their pass rush, they might have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. They drafted Abdul Carter out of Penn State with the 2nd overall pick. That's a guy who Micah Parsons and you add that to what they already had with their pass rush in terms of Dexter Lawrence, a defensive tackle, one of the best nose tackles in the NFL. You have Kayvon Thibodeau, extremely talented. Brian Burns is a guy that has had Pro Bowls and can kind of take him over. I mean, that's going to be a game for Dak Prescott to be uncomfortable twice a year.
I mean, they got some guys.
100%.
You know, they don't have everything in place yet. There's still some things that are missing. There are a lot of guys that are going to have to come through for them to really do anything and really, you know, contend. But we've seen stranger stuff than that happen for a bunch like that.
100%, yeah. And then you kind of turn your attention to Washington. And, you know, I think the one question there is, can Jaden Daniels repeat what he did in terms of that fantastic rookie season? Is there a sophomore slump emerging for him? To be honest with you, I don't think so. I think that what they have in place kind of makes it seem that he can be able to just keep rising. I'm a big fan of Jaden Daniels. And I think the Washington is just a great example of, to be honest, what happens sometimes when change happens.
Yeah.
You know, finally they get rid of Dan Snyder and that regime. And, you know, I've always been a believer that success starts at the top, and culture is defined by what's at the top. And they made changes. They used their money appropriately. They got a franchise quarterback with the 2nd overall pick. And instantly they become a team that not only contended last year, but a team that looks like it's going to contend for NFC East titles for a long time. And that's got to be, it's got to be a little unnerving for Cowboy fans, frankly.
Yeah, and then you have the dreaded and feared Philadelphia Eagles, who, when last seen, were raising the Lombardi.
Oh yeah, yeah. They look good again, and that's another one where you start to wonder success. You know, maybe not at the top in terms of Jeffrey Lurie, their owner, but Howie Roseman, I think, has just been. You know, he's kind of had the Midas touch, frankly, and this is a guy that didn't have that for a while. Was demoted, was pretty much sent out of the entire scouting office. They kind of sent him to the Siberia of the front office just to get away while they kind of waited to get rid of him. And they said, you know what, Howie, we'll bring you back into the fold. And since then, this is a guy that's had the Midas touch. He's been fantastic. He's a guy that has identified Zach Bond as an edge rusher one plays, moves him inside. Next thing you know, he's an all-pro player. Everything he does kind of seems to turn to gold right now. And I think that that's scary for the Cowboys right now because of his hit rate. Everything that they've been doing has been working. And, you know, and they're going to raise a banner on Thursday night against the Cowboys.
Yep.
It's funny, we were talking to CeeDee Lamb about this today, and he's like, I want to watch that happen. I don't want to kind of, you know, ignorance is bliss and disregard that. And the big thing he says, because that's motivation, because that's something we're chasing. Eagles are chasing another one, too. I think that they're going to be really good. Full disclosure, I have Washington in my predictions winning the NFC East this year. Mm-hmm. There's been a different NFC East champion, I think, each of the last 21 years. And I think that continues with Washington taking over this year.
What about Detroit? Detroit was another team that came on strong last year. Are they well poised to add on to what they did?
For sure. Yeah, that's actually my Super Bowl NFC
pick.
It
is?
Yeah, my NFC pick is the Lions because and my one pause is, and I think he's been really, really good in Detroit. And I love his story, kind of being a number one pick that, you know, was kind of shipped off, you know, out of his original home and has found a home in Detroit. Jared Goff in the playoffs still gives me pause, whether that's fair or not. You know, I don't know. I think in terms of clutch time, we'll see if that can actually get over the hump. And that's the big question with them. Otherwise, they are supremely talented at so many positions. And I think they're a great example of what a culture can do. I think a lot of people, you know, we're talking about cynical reporters here, will kind of poo-poo a culture. Like, oh, everyone talks about culture. It doesn't matter. Dan Campbell has instituted a culture in Detroit. This is, you know, a Texas A&M guy. He's tough, gritty. You know, obviously a former Cowboy too, and it's, you know, Jerry Jones has talked a lot about his affinity for Dan Campbell since what he's been doing in Detroit. He has instituted just a tough team, and I think that that's going to be a tough team every week in, every week out. Injuries is something that caught up with him last year. Will that happen again? It's another X factor for him, but I love what Detroit's done. They've got a lot of studs.
He was up at the radio station a time or two, and I would just pass him in the hall. He's got a vibe, man. The guy really has a vibe about him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he was friendly. He was accommodating. He would look at you in the eye. But, man, there's just something about that guy.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, man, it'd be neat if the Cowboys could see that in him. And you know, this is when he was playing for him, you know?
Yeah, no. I think that they recognized, I mean, Jerry recognized that too. And you wonder. There's so many what ifs, Mike, about this just franchise over the course of the last 25 to 30 years, and that's one I kind of wonder about too. Is Dan Campbell, but he's doing well in Detroit.
He is. It's all worked out for him.
No doubt.
What about Green Bay? As long as they're kind of a topic of things today.
It's funny because the Cowboys have hammered home this idea that they got better by trading Micah Parsons. They've hammered home this idea that stopping the run is of premier importance. And it's funny, one thing I push back on them too is, if stopping the run was such an important thing, why didn't you go and sign someone in free agency, of a bigger name that could kind of come in and be that solution for you? So anyways, but wouldn't it be crazy if Micah Parsons goes to Green Bay, is that missing piece for them, and they end up going to an NFC Championship game, something that the Cowboys haven't done in 30 years? I mean, gosh, how much would that hurt Cowboy fans just to see Micah Parsons in that number 1 green jersey, seeing how far they get. And they've got the talent to do it, Mike. Like, that's the scary thing about it. I mean, is they could turn around this year and be a team that's in the NFC Championship and could potentially win one. They're that good. Jordan Love is a question in terms of what he can do. I thought he took a step back last year. A lot of talent there, but they looked at Micah Parsons as the missing piece.
So anybody else in that division doing anything for you? The Vikings or...
Vikings, I love everything about the Vikings except the question mark that is J.J. McCarthy, their quarterback. I mean, you just don't know. Justin Jefferson is just so good. Now they have, Adam Thielen to go back with Jordan Addison. They are just another team that has got a lot of firepower. Chicago, I'm not...
pretty outrageous division.
Yeah, Chicago, I'm still not that worried about. I don't know. They've got talent. I like Ben Johnson. Yeah. It's a guy the Cowboys weren't interested in, even though he's the hot head coaching candidate. I wonder what he'll do with Caleb Williams. We'll find out pretty quickly in week 3 when the Cowboys go to Chicago. But I don't have too many concerns there. I think the Cowboys might win that game. One of their 8 is my projection. So, but that division's good. They kind of like the NFC East, where there's just a lot of talent, and even the worst team, arguably, has a lot of talent too.
How do you see the West shaping up? Yeah,
I think if you look at the NFC West, the Rams are the hot pick. And the Rams are a great pick to not only win the NFC West, but to win the NFC. A lot of people look at them as a talented team that was able to rebuild the right way, and all of a sudden they're back in the fold. Matthew Stafford's back gives me a lot of concern. He's going to play this Sunday, it sounds like, but the will he or won't he? And the one thing I know about backs, I'm already feeling it at 31 when I go out and golf, how just tough and lingering a back injury can kind of be. And if you're playing quarterback and getting hit by, some of these elite athletes that kind of take mass times acceleration and create a lot of force, that worries about, his longevity there. I think I'm going with San Francisco to win the NFC West, and that's not a common pick because everyone thinks that San Francisco lost a lot. They lost Deebo Samuel. They lost Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, a lot of talent, but they have the easiest schedule in the NFL by a large margin, and I think one of the easiest schedules that you'll see in a long time. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to win the division, and then we'll see what happens there. But Arizona's also sneaky always too. Seattle with Sam Darnold is a kind of a big question mark, but Sam Darnold looked good up until the end of last season with Minnesota. Mm-hmm. He can truly spin it. I think San Francisco wins it, but that's another wild card division.
Yeah. What about the South? Anybody there do much for you?
Nah, not really. The NFC South just kind of, it's funny because we look at the NFC landscape and there's so many talented teams, right? We talked about the NFC East having multiple talented teams. The NFC North is just, a lot, right? The NFC South is kind of, I think, where push comes to shove, where, Peter robs Paul a little bit in terms of the conference outlook. I think Atlanta has got some potential. I'm excited to see Michael Penix and what he can do. I think Bijan Robinson is, I'll tell you this, just, there's a difference between what you see on TV and what you see with your own eyes, right? When we were in Atlanta and I saw Bijan Robinson move, that is the most shifty running back I've ever seen ever. And I haven't been around that long, so take that with a grain of salt. But that guy is a human joystick. It is so fun to watch. I'm excited to see what he does. Tampa, I think, still wins that division, though. I like what Baker Mayfield has become. I like what they got at running back. Mike Evans is Mr. Inevitable. at this point. I mean, the fact that he just keeps stacking up 1,000-yard receiving seasons.
The guy's incredible.
It's such a spectacular achievement, man. And I think he might do it again. He's just that good.
What do you think the Cowboys' biggest on-the-field problem is going to be this year?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, that it's
Is it
running back.
run defense? Oh, running back?
I think it's running back because their answer, their solution for it, we still haven't seen. And Javonte Williams could end up being really good for them, right? This is a guy they targeted in free agency. He's a pro's pro is one thing I've heard. He's very physical. But Javonte's not in Denver for a reason, right? And Miles Sanders is another guy that if you look at both those acquisitions in free agency, one of my favorite stats for running backs, advanced stats, is rushing yards over expected, which means, hey, when the offensive line blocks for you, you're supposed to get an expected amount of rushing yards. They had negative rushing yards over expected, so rushing yards under expected, which means that they were not getting everything that was available to them.
Yeah.
And that concerns me. Jaden Blue, I think a lot of people are counting on him. 5th-round pick out of Texas. Mm-hmm. But, I think that's a lot of pressure to put on a guy who was a 5th-round pick and, split carries with another guy in the backfield at Texas wasn't the guy. So I'm really curious to see how it goes. And they're putting a lot of pressure on Tyler Booker to be an instant impact guy, too. I do believe he can be that. I don't have much concerns about Tyler Booker as a first-round pick. But that's still a lot of pressure.
Did you see enough of him in training camp?
I mean, the thing is, we didn't see enough of him in preseason, for sure. In terms of games, he only played one game, about 25 offensive snaps. Everything I watched, so there were so many times in training camp, and I think that's kind of one thing. Training camp's a long time out there in Oxnard. It's just day in, day out. And, I would just catch myself looking at Tyler Booker on occasional plays and be like, let me just check in and see how he's doing. Every time I looked at Tyler Booker on those occasions was not only like handling things, but like most of the time he was excelling.
Yeah.
And whether that's a bad run defense that the Cowboys might have, that's another question. I thought Tyler Booker looked really good. I personally have no questions about whether or not he'll be ready to go. It's more a matter of how high can he go in terms of being an instant impact guy his rookie season. So, but the running game, we'll see. It's a mystery.
What do you think the candidate for disappointment is this year? What's the thing that you think might let people down the most about the Cowboys is?
It's a good question. I think a common pick might be like George Pickens but I think George Pickens is going to be really good. I think there's a lot of eyes on how Jake Ferguson responds. They signed him to a big extension, and full disclosure, I believe he will respond. I think last year was just a weird fluke. Had a knee injury in week 1, had a nasty concussion that lingered with him for a while, comes back from the concussion, and then he's playing with backup quarterbacks, and he's been Dak Prescott and him have had such a good connection. But there's still pressure on Jake Ferguson to now be the guy after he signed a big extension to prove that last season was a fluke. I think that between him and Deron Bland, there's now, in terms of potential disappointments, it's because of the extensions that both these guys got. Yeah. And it's like, can you take that next step? Can you continue, excelling there? And I think those are both high bars to kind of reach for both those guys. I think they're both possible, but that's something that's the onus is on them to now go out and not be a disappointment. So I think that's probably where I would go. I think Trayvon Tiggs is going to be extremely interesting to watch. This is a guy that might play Thursday, which is kind of surreal a little bit considering his offseason knee surgery and the fact that he spent time away from the facility and was, it triggered a $500,000 decrease in payment this year because he didn't, participate in rehab at the facility. But he's looked good. I'm really curious to see what he does. That's another big storyline, not only in this season, but in the early part of this season.
Yeah, that's a name you didn't even hear in training camp much this year.
Yeah, because, when you're just kind of off the field and doing your own thing, and the Cowboys were reluctant to give any timetable on him. They still aren't. And we're, 2 or 3 days away from the season opener. He told us today that there's a 75 to 80% chance he plays in week 1, which is pretty surreal. And if he doesn't, that's another question mark for this team is what they do at slot corner with Deron Bland bouncing outside and against that vaunted Eagles passing attack too. There's questions abound. And that's why, I couldn't give them anything more than 8 wins because there's so many questions. And I think when you start adding these questions up, you start adding losses, frankly. Mm-hmm. But I do think that their high-end talent puts them in that kind of threshold.
One guy you don't have to worry about is the incredible Brandon Aubrey.
Oh, no. Yeah, I don't worry about him at all. At all. He's it's funny because I even asked Nick Sorensen, their special teams coordinator, today, and I was like, okay, well, how do you go about determining what his maximum yardage will be in a given game? And he's like, yeah, one thing with Brandon, though, is like, I'll just tell him anything, and he goes, yeah, okay, sure. Brandon Aubrey is this chillest, smoothest, just automatic thing I think that I've ever seen in terms of sports. He doesn't like to focus on what's actually going on in the game because he believes that really kind of eliminates stress or anxiety and just makes him just go out and focus on the function of kicking.
It's kind of like wake me up when it's time for me to go kick a 65-yard field goal.
Yeah, and then he'll say, you know what, I'm just going to focus on the process. Like he's very like engineer brained, I think, in terms of like, okay, one plus one equals 2, cool. And then I'll go out and just kind of then go back into my zone and not think about things. He's fascinating. I also think he's an incredible X factor for this team because if you look at the new kickoff rules, one, he's really good at the low kind of curve kick that allows it to hit in the landing zone and then go out of bounds, or go in the back of the end zone. So the ball would start at the 20, kind of like old touchbacks were. But if the Cowboys, because they have Kevontae Turpin as well as a returner who's arguably the best returner in football, they're going to put teams in tough positions because teams are going to have to say, hey, do I kick to Kevontae Turpin or do I kick it in the end zone for a touchback and then put them on the 35-yard line? And if they put them on the 35-yard line, that means that the Cowboys are only 15 yards away from Brandon Aubrey's field goal range.
Yeah.
So that means that they are 15 yards away every single drive from scoring potentially. And I think that that's a unique X factor this year for the Cowboys, thanks to Brandon Aubrey and Kevontae Turpin.
Do they plan to use Turpin in the offense a little bit more this year?
I think so.
You think?
Yeah, 100%. I think he's their third wide receiver. And I think that's not something we'd be able to say. Previously, I think he was more of a gadget guy.
Yeah.
I think they truly believe he is their number 3 wide receiver, and I think that they're going to use him a lot.
Did they work him that way in training camp?
Yep. They use him a lot in the slot, but they, to your kind of point, too, about kind of the gadgety stuff, too, is like they put him in the backfield a lot, too. And I was talking to someone about this. He is a small guy, but he's got a lot of ability to run through tackles. He's small in stature, but he can really break through things. There was a play last year against Carolina when he was playing running back, and Josie Jewell, a linebacker for the Panthers, is a 250-pound, just tough linebacker, and he hit Kevontae Turpin in the hole, and I was thinking that he was going to send Kevontae Turpin flying. Kevontae Turpin ran right through him, and I think it's because of his like small stature, but plus his speed. I think he can actually withstand a lot of things that a lot of guys his size usually can't.
Who is your Cowboys surprise that nobody's talking about?
Oof, that nobody's talking about.
Or that not many people are talking about. Maybe.
Yeah.
What do you know that nobody else knows?
I'll tell you this. I think Jack Sanborn is going to be a really good starting middle linebacker for them. And Jack Sanborn is a guy that was undrafted out of Wisconsin, was in Chicago. When he was in Chicago, he was only a rotational guy, but he earned a spot as being the kind of, hey, we've lost this guy. What do we do? Jack, get in there. Be our savior. And Jack did really well in that role. I think Jack Sanborn, now that he has an elevated role, he is one of the leaders of this defense. He's the starting middle linebacker. I think Jack Sanborn is going to have an excellent season for the Cowboys. I think in terms of their linebacker depth, this is one of the better linebacker groups they've had. They might not have the high-end power that they've had when Leighton Vander Esch was obviously playing well, when, they kind of had a lot of guys playing, when DeMarvion Overshown's out there and the kind of high-end ability he brings. Obviously, he's targeting Thanksgiving, and when he comes back, he'll be an X factor. I think Jack Sanborn is going to just be a rock for this defense, and I wouldn't be surprised if he plays really well for him.
Has the Dallas Morning News got any surprises for us in the way the Cowboys are going to be covered this year?
No, nothing.
I will take no for an answer.
Yeah, nothing really surprising. I think, to be honest with you, they keep us busy, and I think, to be candid, when you have a new guy in the fold again, even though I have familiarity there, like there is a learning process in terms of chemistry, in terms of aspirations, in terms of what we want to do on a given basis. I'll tell you this, Mike, we plan to cover the heck out of the team every single day.
Does it take a guy like you who's new on the beat, does it take them a little while to get used to you and get to know who you are and everything like that?
Is
there kind of a curve there for them with you?
For the Cowboys?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 100%. My first season, it was funny because Lone Star Live was started. It had a launch, I think, the week before the season started. And I announced on social media, like, I'm going to be the Dallas Cowboys beat reporter for Lone Star Live, because the site launched. And then I emailed the Cowboys, said, hey, how do I go about getting credentials? And they go, who are you? And they go, you want credentials? So my whole first year was me trying to build relationships. And I didn't get credentials to every game. I was, because I was on a, extended list. And so that whole first year was about building relationships and trying to prove that, hey, I am a beat reporter that can cover this team. And then I went to DLS and now with the DMN. So there was a learning curve there. I think with new coaches too, there's always the fun learning curve of getting to know them. Some of the players, obviously it's more of a face thing, and then you start to learn names and get to know them. But there's definitely a learning curve when you're trying to get on the beat for the first time, for sure.
But I mean, you're around, surely the coaches, get to know you pretty quickly, don't they? Because you're around them a good bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more consistently, right?
100%. Yeah, there's organized, scheduled things. And I also think when you have to introduce your name every single time, that starts building, like, oh, okay, that's Joe right there. Like, okay. So that's been cool.
Has Shotty called you Joe yet?
Yes. But Shotty's just a good press conference coach, because he also understands that, like, he listens to the name intro, and he'll repeat it back to you, and like he knows, I think that like, oh, okay, that builds familiarity with us, and it's just little things like that that's like smart PR, frankly. You know what I mean? Like, he'll say good question a lot.
Yeah.
He'll answer questions. I think he handles press conferences really well.
Does it make you feel good when he says good question?
It's funny. I like reporters, I think, would be like, no, it doesn't. Like we all have egos. Like, you know what I mean? I think people like to be like, oh yeah, that was a good question. You know what? I did have a good question.
That was kick-ass.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, like, that's why I think it's good PR, because it almost makes reporters like, it leaves a different feeling than like, oh, that's a stupid question. You know, I mean, it truly, it makes you kind of look at things differently. And as reporters, you got to be cynical with yourself and guard against that stuff, obviously. But I think it's smart PR to do against people who are not being conscientious of that.
Have you ever had a coach tell you that's a stupid question?
Yes. Yeah.
Who did that?
It was a high school coach that has told me. I'll tell you, some of the toughest interviews I've had are on high school football fields after tough games.
Oh, they're not used to it. Those guys aren't used to, being interviewed, and you have to extend a little attitude, don't you?
100%. And I'll say this too. Sometimes I ask dumb questions. Sometimes we all ask really stupid questions. And it's funny because sometimes you have this question in your mind, and then a word salad comes out and it doesn't make any sense. And you're like, dude, why did you ask that? Or why did you ask it like that? And I think it's natural. And I think it's one of those things that kind of, humbles you as a reporter, frankly. But I think you got to be aware of it. If if you ask a stupid question, you deserve to have a answer that's not great.
Do you ever ask a question where once you ask it, you realize that the question was not as organized and well thought?
Oh, 100%.
As you think, or you thought it was?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it happens all the time where I'm just like, you ask it and you're like almost looking down. You're like, dude, how did you, what? Like, that's what came out. And, I think in terms of, being an interviewer, like it, as you know, sometimes like just, it's not perfect, and you kind of got to ride with it and hope for the best. But I'll never, if I ask a dumb question, I'll never be offended by an answer that is equally either, not on par or is mean, frankly. So that never gets me. The only thing that I try to, if I ask a question that I think is pretty clear and the subject does not take it that way or takes offense, where it's like, that wasn't meant to be offensive, or I'm just asking a question, and that stuff can be a little different.
Do you think I've asked any stupid questions today?
No, not one.
I've got a stupid question.
You got a stupid question?
Yeah. What's your favorite condiment in a hot dog?
Oh my gosh. So, Mike, I'm curious to see what you think about this, okay?
Okay.
You're not going to like it. You're not going to like it. I don't like ketchup. I don't like mustard. I don't like relish. I don't want like a dry hot dog. So I put mayo on hot dogs.
That's weird.
Yeah, 100%. But the same way that I don't get offended by a dumb question that has like a bad answer, I don't get offended by that response.
Okay, you be you, man.
Have you ever had a Seattle dog?
No.
So Seattle dogs are cream cheese and onions, like like caramelized onions on top of it. That one's pretty good too.
Wow.
So you got to watch Star Wars and have Seattle dogs soon. Those are your two things, Mike.
Yeah, not just a mayo and a hot dog. But I have seen Kennedy, Landry, and Joe going back and forth on Twitter quite a bit about the hot dog situation, and I felt proud of myself because at one point I called him Mayosef.
Mayosef was good. I think Kennedy's tried it too. I think maybe I'm lying here, Kennedy. If I am, correct me. I think that she's maybe tried it and at least gave me that, but it didn't go well.
So is this just mayo or like mayo and cheese or anything else? Or
I wouldn't be
just
opposed
mayo?
to cheese, but I'm totally good with when I was a kid, sometimes my Auntie Judy would make me just white bread, and just put mayonnaise on it, and that was my lunch for the day.
Mayo sandwiches are a thing.
I know.
Like that was
All
a
right,
thing.
can you sub Miracle Whip for it though, or does it have to be
you
straight
could.
up mayo?
Miracle Whip only.
Yeah, he's a Miracle Whip guy.
Yeah.
He can't do mayo.
Oh no, I do.
It's got
I
eggs
do.
in it.
I do straight mayo.
Oh.
Shoopy doesn't like
Hellman's
eggs.
mayo?
I will say though, you know the mayo bowl in college football? You know how they like dump mayonnaise on? That is disgusting to me. Like that is too much. I can't have just mayo. I need at least bread and a hot dog.
I refuse to go to that bowl. I will only choose the Pop-Tart bowl at this point in time.
It's fantastic.
That
When
is
it
a great
comes to
bit.
food.
Far out, man.
Mike's like, we're talking about mayo. What the hell?
No, that's great. It's great.
What about
What am I
ham?
talking about? What about ham? A question that has dogged me
No
forever.
question.
What about ham?
There's a drop for it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
There's a drop for
There's a
everything.
drop for everything.
There's a drop for
There
everything.
is. Everything stupid I've ever said, he's got in his computer.
It's pretty great.
How many files we got now for the drops?
Let's see. Just from our time at the Freak, 48, 47, plus 46. What, a couple hundred?
That's
See?
approaching 500.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
All right, Joe Hoyt. Can't thank you enough for this, man. This has been good.
Of course, Mike. Thank you
This
so
has
much for
got
having
my
me.
head right for Cowboys football.
I know. I'm ready. I'm ready for fall. I'm ready to get rid of the shorts. I'm ready for cozy weather too. Give
Yeah.
me my North Face. Let's rock and enjoy some fall.
Yeah. Let's put on the fleece and go.
Let's go.
Put on our Uggs.
All right. There he is. That is Joe Hoyt. Do we have the other thing on here? The other end thing? Where is it? I don't think we do.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Here it is. All right. Now you just got rid of it. It's got the computer keyboard up there now.
It's a whole thing.
How squared away are we?
What, guys?
Hang on. There's something I want to tell you all before we go.
What's at the bottom? What's going on? I don't know. I'm just here.
Well, I can tell you this. First of all, we appreciate you being by the channel for YDC and all the stuff we do here.
Oh,
People.
This just ain't going to happen today, is it?
I got it.
Okay. All right. Here we go. You can find all of our episodes on our Patreon page, and you can find us on YouTube and Spotify. A nice review. If you're by the channel on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can help others find us by leaving a review. So you do that for us. We'll keep doing this for you. It'll work out well for everybody. For Shoopy, for Ashley, for Becca. This has been your Dark Companion. I'm Mike. Bye.
All right. I'm gonna go take my pants off.
Your Dark Companion is a Stolen Water Media presentation.